Hello, welcome to Jewish Culture and Jewish Awareness. This is Dustin Hausner. I'm the Jewish Outreach and Program Director at the Wayne YMCA. All our Jewish programs is funded through the Jewish Federation of Northern New Jersey. So I'm very excited, particularly for today's guest. We have a lot of wonderful guests that have been part of the series. This gentleman is doing something very unique, which I'm really excited to talk to you about. Our guest today is Yitz Jordan, also known as Y Love. He is the Chief Product Officer at the Tribe Herald, which is a multicultural Jewish news and local one-of-a-kind experiences that celebrates and is for Jews of color, the Jewish community, and allies in all diversities. Y Love is also an American hip-hop artist, web developer, activist, and entrepreneur. So, Yitz Jordan, it is so great to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Excellent. So I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about yourself for those of you who may not be familiar with the work you do and obviously your history with the Jewish community.
Okay, so I've been a hip hop artist for about 20 years. Started doing hip hop in yeshiva in Jerusalem. I'm a Jew by choice. I converted in 2000, started the process in 1999. Originally from Baltimore and living in Brooklyn for about, like I said, about the past 20 years. Started doing hip hop way back in the day. Like I said, before Matisyahu, before any of that, we were really like the pioneers out there in the bars, in the clubs, like the only two dudes with yarmulkes, like rocking the house in like 2000, 2001. Would be a hip hop artist for about 12, 13 years. In 2014, I started working for QuartzQZ.com and started getting involved in media. And I was one of their earliest hires web development wise. And so I got to see the whole trajectory of a media startup from that first startup office all the way to an 8-figure acquisition over the course of 6 years. That would inspire me to go into media myself. Been on world tour a few times. Been in a lot of press. Like I said, as a pioneer of Jewish hip hop.
Awesome. Well, I'm very glad to have you with us, and congratulations on it. It would be about 20 years. So congratulations. So I want to ask you about the Tribe Herald. Now, it's a very interesting. If you go on YouTube if you go online and you look up a Tribe Herald, you'll see many different news articles, and the focus seems to be on Jews of color having their voices heard and having their perspectives heard. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about, what was the origin of the Tribe Herald, and kind of what do you think is the important work that the Tribe Herald contributes?
So last year, around the time when all the anti-Semitic attacks were happening, and in Muncie, New York, and in Poway and Jersey City, when far too many of the perpetrators of those attacks and just general anti-Semitic hate crimes were people of color. And when you see people of color and Jewish communities in conflict, who gets caught in the middle is Jews of color. So we started to hear stories of people being asked to pick sides, people with conflicts going on in their own families, people with the Jewish community really leaving a bad taste in their mouth as far as racism and anti-Semitism as far as the community where they lived at. And it got to the point that one person said on Facebook, on one of the Jews of color groups, does anybody want to say bye, Felicia, to the Jewish community totally? And we were like, no, I don't want to just cut the Jewish community off. In fact, this makes me want to get more involved. And I contacted Manish Tana randomly because it hit me that we had all these Jews of color organizations and all these groups on Facebook and all these people to follow on Twitter, but nobody knew what anyone else was doing. Group A didn't know what Group B was doing, and Organization A could be having an event and no one would know about it. And the only time that we would all see each other would be at funerals. So it got to the point that when I contacted Manish Tana, I was like, we need some type of a newsletter that Jews of color can at least know what we're doing, know what the community is doing. And while we're having these and while we're having these conversations, the attacks are going on and they're getting worse and worse. And it hit us like, you know what, we need more than just a newsletter. We need a community center. We need a place that we all can go to talk about these issues that we're having, and to just not only talk to each other, but a place. And not only do we need a newsletter to say what each organization is doing, but we need a place for all these organizations to have these events and to meet up at. And while we were planning to start this community center, Corona happened.
Yeah.
And so everything that we were going to plan, I mean, we were literally in talks with sitting next to real estate agents and everything. And then Corona happened. And so we moved everything that was going to be offline online. So tribeherald.com would launch, the Tribe Herald Facebook page would launch. And we're trying to do a lot of what we wanted to do with that original community center with online. So that means webinars, that means articles, that means what would have been merchandise, let's say, next to the front desk is now an online e-commerce store. We're trying to bring a lot of that experience online until we can, God willing and Corona willing, get back out there to get back to the community center idea.
So, I mean, well, first of all, I think it's amazing that all of you came together and said, you know what, we need to get a community center to address this need. It sounds like a very drastic need in the community. And you were fairly quickly able to adapt that to an online platform. I mean,
the idea of I don't want to say Jewish Community Center because it's not like a JCC,
right?
But the idea of a community center for Jews of color is a very old idea. We had initially started talking about this after, I think it was 2009, a guy, Yosef Robinson, was killed in Flatbush. He was killed in a kosher wine store. He worked behind the counter. And at his funeral, there were so many Jews of color, because he was a Jamaican guy. And there were so many Jews of color, and we all said the same thing to each other, like, why don't I ever see you?
Wow.
Where are you? How is it that we are each the only individual Jew of color that everybody at our shul knows? Why don't we get together?
Right.
And so we started looking for spaces at the time, but there was no money. People weren't, and some people weren't really involved, and the support just kind of fell apart. And now we're picking that back up, kind of where we left off way back in the day. The need is there. We've recognized it. The appetite is there. People want to go to something that caters to them as Jews of color. You know, we're 1 in 5 Jews in the Jewish population in America, and nothing's catering to us. Very, very few resources are catering to us. The appetite is there, the need is there, and we just hope that we can bring the resource.
Well, let me ask you, because you're mentioning obviously this great need, and obviously this overwhelming population that people it doesn't register, I would say, in many places. So I'm curious, do you feel that disconnect of, certain Jewish communities when it comes to reaching out to Jews of color? Is it because of something that they're just not reaching where you live, or there's a disconnect in kind of the approach almost? Like,
both.
I think is the reason for, I would love to.
Both and all of the above. Number one, there's people still cling to that notion of looking Jewish, or trying to pick up on some outside indicator of Jewishness, quote unquote. So maybe they'll look for the person who's biracial with a Jewish sounding last name, or they'll look for the person who's buying the kosher food or something like that. That's only going to get to the people who still have some level of affiliation. The people who've long ago said goodbye to the Jewish community, those people aren't going to be reached with, traditional outreach. What we're trying to do is to say, like, we exist, we're here, and if you want something that caters to you, we have that. As far as doing outreach, am I going around to people in Bed-Stuy and Bushwick being like, yo, did you put on tefillin? I don't think I would do that, but we want to at least, build it and advertise it and hope that they'll come.
So let me jump in a little bit, because I know there's actually been a consistent message for you and obviously the co-creator of Time Child for many years. And, even if you go to the merchandise, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but, you have a shirt that's, Jewish and then non-equal white. And, there's a big emphasis in the idea of seeing Judaism in a much broader spectrum than kind of the Woody Allens and the more traditional comedic, almost stereotype Jewish look to it. So in a way, I kind of want to ask, because you're focused on this in the Tribe Herald, especially with the many diverse articles, what is things that you think people should know about the diverse communities? Like, what are things we should be talking about? What are the conversations we should be having or learning?
Well, I mean, we're as diverse as America itself. We're as diverse as the world itself.
Yeah.
So the conversations that impact communities of color, that's all I can speak to in this conversation, because there's a whole world of intersectionality out there. But as far as people of color in America, when ICE is out there picking up people based on the color of their skin or whether or not they're speaking Spanish and asking them if they have their papers, that's happening to Jewish people too. When Black people are being pulled over by cops indiscriminately, that's happening to Jewish people too. When Native people are losing land, that's happening to Jewish people too. All of these problems that are associated with communities of color, immigration, crime, discrimination, etc. These are also happening to Jews. Any conversation about the Black community, quote unquote, is talking about 500,000 Jews. Any conversation that's talking about the Latino community is talking about hundreds of thousands of Jews. So it's the recognition of that intersection and the recognition that there is no othering. There is no conversation that doesn't involve Jews. Jews are involved in every community. And so every conversation is relevant. There's nothing that somebody can point and say, you know what, they're going through that. That doesn't affect the Jews. No, everything affects the Jews.
So for the Tribe Herald, because obviously that's the website you are in charge of when it comes to content things right now, you have a number of, I think, very well-written articles about many different topics, including the recent issues with certain celebrities using anti-Semitic tropes, food. I think one of your more recent ones was about the question of traveling to Europe and, the reason by seeing your own roots. So I'm curious if the hope of the online platform, because I definitely want to talk about the Rosh Hashanah program you're also working on as well. Is it the hope is to continue with kind of the news stories as well, or is it, as you mentioned, to work on something where you also have webinars with speakers? Like, what will the online community ideally look like with time? What do you hope?
Ideally, we do want to expand more and more into news and become more of a quote unquote mainstream Jewish outlet. Okay. We want to be there right in the same circles as the Forward and Tablet and, those types of publications. Because our point of view and our perspective is just as valid as anybody else's. It's not like we're part of some novelty, or we're not like we're some novelty or just exist to be part of some sociological menagerie. We have a valid point of view in the Jewish community as much as, Sephardi Jews, Mizrahi Jews, many of whom are Jews of color. So we want to be right there to represent our community and to represent our points of view in the same way that the Ashkenormative point of view is put out there. Does that include webinars and speakers and counseling and stuff that's unique for our community? Of course it does. But we want to expand into news, into sports coverage, into everything, because, all of that intersects with our communities too.
Very nice. So I'm curious about your Rosh Hashanah plans, because right now there's a very nice little sub teaser about it. So I'm curious, what is it you're hoping or looking to do for the holidays coming up?
Again, God willing and Corona willing. We are planning to have an online and offline extravaganza for Rosh Hashanah. So Tribe Herald is going to be hopefully joining forces with other Jews of color organizations. We're still in the planning stages and in the alliance and relationship forming stages, but we're going to be having offline services, hopefully, an offline program in Prospect Park in Brooklyn, and an online program on Zoom. That's the goal. Like I said, this is assuming that we're not going to be in another round of lockdowns, and we're not going to be in another round of mandatory quarantine. If that doesn't happen, we're going to be out in Prospect Park on Rosh Hashanah. Services led by Manish Tana, and just 2 days of programs, workshops, conversations, panel discussions, things like that, and Kiddush twice. Which is of course the important thing. We are, like I said, planning to be just out there, not just for the davening and for the holiday celebration of it all, but also to make our presence known in Brooklyn. We want it to be known that yes, there are 150 Jews of color, people speaking Spanish, people, Black people, Asian people out there with a talit on, blowing a shofar right there in the park. We are technically charging for tickets, but of course, if nobody's going to be turned away for the inability to pay. If somebody comes off the street and wants to celebrate their Jewish heritage like they haven't done in 20, 25 years because nobody's ever reached out to them, we want to be there for that.
And I think you have, a couple of interesting sponsorship levels for the event, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Now you're asking me off the top to remember our sponsorship.
Then why don't we just say, go to the website, and on the website,
yes, go to the site to see the different sponsorship opportunities. And also, those are just suggestions on the site for sponsorship. Every dollar helps, honestly. Every contribution helps for something like this. We kind of took for granted that I kind of took for granted that we were going to have 100% participation from Jews of color. I figured that we were going to say, we have Rosh Hashanah services, and just be inundated with all these messages, right, like, finally, somebody's speaking to me. No, it wasn't like that. So, we're out there trying to get people just as much as anybody else. So, like I said, all the donations help at this point.
Gotcha. And also, I think, because as I mentioned earlier on, there's like 3 parts. There's the Tribe Herald, which has all the news and has all the information. You have the Tribe Herald Foundation website, which I think is where they can donate directly to.
Yeah, and then Tribe Herald is still tribeherald.org. The Tribe Herald Foundation we're still collecting for that community center. Hopefully, again, God willing and Corona willing, we'll be able to have a place that we can all go to, at least for events every week. I can't even express how thankful I am to not be caught in a multi-year lease right now, but hopefully we'll be able to get a building and to have some type of stability that allows us to have a community center.
Nice. So I want to briefly touch upon also the Tribe Avenue, which is, we were talking a little bit about it before, but what I love about it is it talks about obviously Black, Jewish, LGBTQ, it goes under so many different diverse segments. It's not towards one group. And I was just curious, there's, I think, a wonderful style. There's diversity, but there's also a bit of almost like a revolutionary, because there's the off the Derech, which I hope I didn't pronounce that.
Off the Derech?
Yes, thank you. Off the Derech. Like a very interesting style you're doing that I've never seen in a lot of Jewish shops and circles. So I'm curious if you could talk about kind of the style that you're going with here, and obviously the message as well.
Well, initially, the first collection that we came up with was the Jewish Diversity Collection, just for basic I won't say basic reasons, obvious reasons for us. There's just nothing out there that celebrates being a Jew of color. There's nothing out there that says, you know, hey, I'm Black and Jewish. I'm a proud Latino Jew. I'm a proud Native American Jew. There was nothing out there that existed that expressed that we were happy to be who we were. And we wanted to put something out there that said that. Then, of course, that would expand to the, I don't want to say social justice, the justice shirt, the Tzedek fist. That would come out soon after that. And then most of the designs are from me. Most of the designs have were just, you know, my brain children. From there, the Off the Derech line is coming out of conversations that I've had with people in organizations like Footsteps, people in the Off the Derech ex-Orthodox community on Facebook and other places that say things like, you know, I'm tired of being told that I'm off the derech. Like, you know, I'm creating my own off the derech means off the path, as in off the path of Judaism and off the path of Torah. And it's like, no, I'm creating my own path. So the Create Your Own Derech t-shirt. You know, it's answering a need in the community that just isn't being met. People, when they leave Orthodoxy, are often seen as like, oh, Nebuch, poor you, like you probably have no resources, you have no family, no friends. And it's like, no, I am living secular and loving it. And you have lots of people who want to express that, people who want to express pride in things that, you know, extend beyond Kugel and stuff like that.
Interesting. No, it's like I said, that's for anyone who's watching Tribe Avenue. That's where you could see a lot of stuff. There's also please.
And I was going to say, and also Tribe Avenue. Why did we pick the name Tribe Avenue?
Please.
So that ideally, eventually, as we expand, other artists and other people will be able to get addresses on Tribe Avenue, like a very boutique Etsy for Jews of color and for other underrepresented Jewish artists and designers and creators. Well, and women and LGBTQ people and things like that, because we're not necessarily on the front of Amazon. We're not necessarily on the hottest thing on eBay. We need something to be able to showcase our art too.
Let me ask, because it's the timing is, of course, I think in anything in life, timing is everything. And while I'm absolutely loving this conversation, I want to ask about the question of, you know, the focus on things like Black Lives Matter and that sort of thing, the things that are so relevant right now in the country. And I'm curious, for individuals like yourself who have been outspoken for many years and are working on this major project to help elevate voices that haven't before, do you think this is a time that's creating a lot of opportunity, or in some ways creating a lot of hurt, or kind of a mixture of the two in your view? I know
it's a mixture of the two, and it's a disgustingly painful, bittersweet mixture of the two, because like our CFO told me long ago when we right after we hired him, he's like, you know, every racist incident and every anti-Semitic incident is going to be a meal ticket for you. And I took that as being like, you know, oh, haha, you know, very funny. But I mean, he's also not Jewish. But it's true. Like, with the pain has come opportunity. It really, it's horrible that it took George Floyd's death to get so many people out on the streets. It's terrible that it took such brutality to bring about such unity. And it's terrible hearing things like, you know, Deshaun Jackson and Ice Cube and Nick Cannon, and then people defending them in the Black community. But it's also brought a great awareness to anti-Semitism in the Black community, and it's brought a big awareness to Jews of color. When the RCA just decided to have a Black Lives Matter panel, which they did change, but initially decided to have a Black Lives Matter panel with no Black Jews, speaking about that. And then they changed the panel. You know, being able to make changes happen like that. would we be in these types of positions were we not in such a painful situation? Maybe not. It is a lot of pain, but like I said, the pain is bringing opportunity.
No, well, let me ask.
And on the other side, I was going to say there's also the opportunity for bridge building here too. Just like there's a negative, there has to be an equivalent positive. We're hoping that with Rosh Hashanah, with our content, we build bridges between the Jewish community and the communities of color that we represent too, because there shouldn't be these kinds of divisions out here.
Well, I was going to say, one of the nice things about like reading a lot of the articles from the Tribe Herald is in many ways it opens the door to hearing a voice that you may not have ever heard of before, a different perspective you never would have heard of because maybe your synagogue isn't as diverse as you hope it would be, or you haven't had those in-person interactions or experiences that other people haven't had.
Right. That's one of the things we try to do, is to showcase as many diverse voices as we possibly can. That person from one of our Facebook ads actually is from family from Indonesia who would let us use a picture from their bar mitzvah for Tribe Herald. And I was like, yes, I'm going to subscribe to all of you on Instagram. I want to know everything about the Orthodox community in Jakarta. Yes. That kind of thing, being able to facilitate that, being able to say like, yeah, let me know what's going on in Indonesia, and us in New York are going to be reading about it, and we're all Jews, so we all care. Just to be able to do that is a huge honor and a blessing, it feels like, every day.
I'll also mention, because we didn't earlier, but while these are a lot of American voices, it's also a lot of international articles.
Yeah, we concentrate on the diaspora.
Right.
Because we do have plans to launch Tribe Herald Israel, but Israel is its own thing, and it's its own entity, and
own issues all.
Yeah, like we need different reporters and different writers to be writing from the Israeli perspective. We're writing from the diaspora perspective.
Completely understood. So let me ask, I mean, we've been talking about it for however long about the Tribe Herald, but let's say someone's watching this, first time they're hearing of the Tribe Herald, what would be your reason to convey to someone of why they should go online, look up the Tribe Herald, read some of the articles? Like what would you say is the reason people should look into what you're working on?
Because up until now, if you're not reading Tribe Herald, up until now, you're simply not getting all of the Jewish community. You're not getting 100% of the points of view, and you're not getting the richness of the diversity that's out there. If somebody's not reading the Tribe Herald, they're probably going to read maybe an article a week or an article a month about a Jew of color that's going to be presented as a human interest story. So-and-so converted. We went to this third world country, and we found this group of 100 people who light Shabbos candles, and this is a lost tribe. These types of articles are going to come up. A person is not going to hear about why Black Native American Jews need to be included in the conversations about Black Lives Matter, or what happens with how biracial Jews navigate having one parent from Nigeria and another parent being Ashkenazi. You're just not going to hear a whole gamut of stories and get a whole gamut of material. If somebody hasn't heard of Tribe Herald yet, and they specifically don't want to listen to our points of view, I would question their alliance to any other Jewish group. We're 1 in 5 Jews out here in America. We're not just some small slice of the population. We're hundreds of thousands of people, and our voices matter too.
So we've said it multiple times, but basically the Tribe Herald brings the voices of huge diversity of Jews in a manner that's not condescending, that's not, the one-time happy piece. It's really giving and
showing us as multifaceted individuals.
Yes. So Okay, so where is the best place, besides obviously looking up on Google Tribe Herald, where are the best places to find the articles, the
So
merch?
we are
Everything?
there on Facebook at Tribe Herald. We are there on all of your platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Tribe Herald. TribeHerald.com for the media, for the news, the articles, and all of that other wonderful content. But to contribute to the community center and to the community in general, tribeherald.org. Venmo, PayPal, also at Tribe Herald, if you want to send a donation, and tribeavenue.com for all of your merchandise needs.
Fantastic. Well, I extremely appreciate your time speaking with us today, offering this wonderful service. I wish all the best health for your center that will, knock on wood, eventually come. And obviously all the best with your plans for Rosh Hashanah coming up.
Thank you. All the best to you too.
All right. So everybody watching, I hope you stay healthy, stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you on another video. So have a wonderful day. Yitz, thank you again for joining us today.